Today I've chosen a sutta that's a powerful teaching from the Lord Buddha on nutriment, investigating these sources of fuel, these foods that keep us going. We're here because of past nourishment, and we're continuing to nourish our existence through the use of eating up of these four nutriments. And the Buddha encouraged us to have a particular attitude towards this process. And this sutta is called Sun's Flesh, Saṃyutta 12, number 63. It's a really very good teaching, as you'll hear, for those who have the inclination towards desire, towards greed, towards wanting. People can be divided into all sorts of categories, and one of the ways you can look at human nature is through the lens of the great defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion. It's better not to really look at others, but looking at ourselves, this one, we can gauge and we can see what is the predominant state of mind, way in which unwholesome qualities can surface here. There's often particular characteristics, and for some of us, we can recognize that we're more inclined towards wanting, desiring. We're, in short, greed types. We incline towards positivity. We like to get more. We enjoy what we have. Nothing wrong, exactly. It's just that this can lead to growth in desire, in craving, in grasping, if we're not very mindful. And then other kinds of people have the inclination towards aversion, a more negative lens. They're not looking through rose-tinted spectacles as much as maybe shades. Everything's a bit darker. The Buddha said this is actually a wiser attitude to the world because it's more realistic. So these are the tendencies we can see in ourselves to find fault, to be irritable, to turn away from things, to want to get away from, or to push others away or situations away. This turning away from and finding fault, and even in the most pleasant situations, the inclination to know that it's going to end soon, or to find something in that situation that's actually quite unattractive, quite unsatisfactory. So a greed type will walk into a newly decorated room and be delighted and thrilled. This room's been so beautifully repainted, redecorated. How lovely, what a nice colour. The aversion type will come into the room and immediately the eye will be drawn to the blotch, the bit that was left out, or the bit where the paint, there's a little drip of paint coming down the wall. And they will find fault and they will see that it could have been done better. And the greed type will just see how wonderful, how delightful. And then there are the third category with a predominance of ignorance, the kinds of people who just find it all very confusing. Life is rather confusing. They're not quite sure what they're doing, what comes next, how to do things. It's all a bit of a mess. Things get forgotten. I'm not quite sure what's going on. So these types of personalities, you could say, we can investigate, and we can see probably all three types here in ourselves. And there may be an inclination or a tendency to observe more of one of these three manifesting as a habitual way of relating to the world. So this sutta that I'm going to read to you just now is a really helpful sutta for people who incline towards desire, towards greed, towards having the very positive and rose-tinted way of viewing the world, the child's flesh. At Savatthi. Mendicants, there are these four fuels, four foods. They maintain sentient beings that have been born, and they help those that are about to be born. What are these four? They are solid food, whether coarse or fine. They are contact, mental intention, and consciousness. These are the four foods that maintain sentient beings that have been born and those who are about to be born. How should you regard these four? This is how we should regard solid food. Suppose a couple who are husband and wife set out to cross a desert, taking limited supplies. They had an only child, dear and beloved. As the couple were crossing the desert, their limited quantity of supplies would run out, but they'd still have the rest of the desert to cross. Then it would occur to that couple, our limited quantity of supplies has run out, and we still have the rest of the desert to cross. Why don't we kill our only child, so dear and beloved, and prepare dried and spiced meat? Then we can make it across the desert by eating our child's flesh. Let not all three perish. Then that couple would kill their only child, so dear, so beloved, and prepare dried and spiced meat. And they'd make it across the desert by eating their child's flesh. And as they'd eat their child's flesh, they would beat their breasts and cry, "Where are you, our only child? Where are you, our only child?" What do you think, friends? Would they eat that food for fun, indulgence, adornment or decoration, fattening or beauty? No. Wouldn't they eat that food just so that they can make it across the desert? I say this is how you should regard solid food. When solid food is completely understood, desire for the 5 kinds of sensual stimulation is completely understood. When desire for the taste, the smell, the touch, the thought of, the sight of food, when these are completely understood, a noble disciple is bound by no fetter that might return them again to this world. And how should we regard contact as fuel, as food? Suppose there was a flayed cow. If she stands by a wall, the creatures on the wall bite her. If she stands under a tree, the creatures in the tree bite her. If she stands in some water, the creatures in the water bite her. If she stands in the open, the creatures in the open bite her. Wherever that flayed cow stands, the creatures there would bite her. I say that this is how you should regard contact as food, as fuel. When contact as fuel is completely understood, these 3 feelings are completely understood: pleasant, painful, and neutral. When these 3 feelings are completely understood, a noble disciple has nothing further to do, I say. And how should you regard mental intention as food? Suppose there was a pit of glowing coals, deeper than a person's height, filled with glowing coals that neither flamed nor smoked. Then a person would come along who wants to live and doesn't want to die, who wants to be happy and recoils from pain. Then 2 strong people would grab them by the arms and drag them towards the pit of glowing coals. Then that person's intention, aim, and wish would be to get far away. Why? Because that person would think, if I fall into that pit of glowing coals, that will result in my death or deadly pain. I say that this is how you should regard mental intention as fuel. When mental intention as fuel is completely understood, the 3 cravings are completely understood. Craving for being, craving for annihilation, and craving for sense pleasures. When the 3 cravings are completely understood, a noble disciple has nothing further to do, I say. And how should you regard consciousness as fuel? Suppose they were to arrest a bandit, a criminal, and present him to the king. saying, "Your Majesty, this is a criminal. Punish him as you will." The king would say, "Go and strike this person in the morning with 100 spears." The people will do as they're told, and then at midday the king would say, again, "Strike that person with 100 spears." They will do that, and then late in the afternoon the king would say, "How is that person? Are they still alive?" They would say, "Yes." And the king would say, "Go and strike them again with 100 spears." And they would do as they're told. What do you think, friends? Would that person experience pain and distress from being struck with 300 spears a day? I say, this is how you should regard consciousness as fuel. When consciousness as fuel is completely understood, name and form, nama rupa, body and mind. When name and form are completely understood, a noble disciple has nothing further to do, I say. Ewan. So this is a very powerful teaching, a great encouragement for us to investigate our views towards these ways in which we nourish ourselves. Investigate our relationship with food, with contact, with intentionality, and with consciousness. The reason the Buddha gives these graphic, absolutely horrible images to us is to help us to extract ourselves from the very insidious, all-pervasive view of grasping, wanting, holding, cherishing, relishing. So it's a balancing teaching, a teaching that's enabling us to just consider. Don't turn away from these painful similes. Don't dismiss them as negative and traumatic reading. Rather, can we bring them in and consider them? So to eat our food rather than the natural, especially when we're really hungry, the energy that wants to get, to consume, to have and to enjoy. Can we willingly consider that this may be a source of suffering for us? Can we consider that this could be a source of attachment to samsara that is leading us into more suffering in the future? When we eat our food, can we eat simply to give the body what it needs and no more? And to see the food as fuel, just like you'd put petrol into a car, gas into a car. Nowadays, with climate catastrophes unfolding all around us, the image of putting gas into a car has, for many of us, a lot of dukkha. So it's painful. Putting gas into the car is one more tiny act that is leading to our annihilation as a species and that of many other species on this planet. Putting gas into the car, can we see it as the painful necessity, perhaps? We have to get to work, we have to go from A to B to look after this person or that person. We're putting gas into the car, we're burning the fuel. We're heating the planet, little tiny fraction, minuscule fraction more. Can we see the dukkha inherent in this? Can we see when we're eating food that this is taking life from elsewhere? This is unavoidable. We have these bodies and we don't want to throw them away. We want to look after them and use them as a vehicle for liberation. But can we see that this food is a source of suffering? Consider it to be like dead son's flesh. Something dear to us has died in order for us to be able to be nourished. That is always the case, friends. Something dear has to go in order for life here to be sustained. That's the way of samsara. So these contemplations can be really helpful, and most particularly for those who struggle with food issues, with eating issues, with overeating, or the greed that can be a very compelling addiction for us around particular kinds of food. Or if that doesn't resonate with you, we could talk about also beverages. Many people are used to having their daily beverage of coffee or tea or whatever it is, how much we enjoy. And can we just consider the ramifications of this, even as we're consuming and enjoying the nutrition, the nutriment that's coming in. This is all about balance and developing wisdom around this particular nutriment. So ways to consider solid food. Let's be guided by this teaching. Remember dead sun's flesh. As we're eating, to investigate at that time, to sit and look at our food and to consider, where did it come from? How does it feel to take it in? And can I remember the Buddha's teaching on dead sun's flesh? And then the second nutriment of contact, this is touch. This is the entry of all our experience from the what's seemingly outside to the inside. So we have the 6 senses, the 5 senses that receive, also the mind, the 6th sense receiving input, data from outside. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching are the other 5 senses. So all of this contact, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and thoughts, all of these are coming in to nourish us. If you put a person in a dark room, in a flotation tank, where they can't hear, see, smell, taste, or touch anything other than the water that's holding them up, it's very disorientating, very disturbing for people, difficult to keep track of time. And what happens, the only sense that's left, the mind, will start to really come into its own and produce the nourishment that we need. So we are programmed, aren't we, friends, to receive and to be constantly processing information, contact. And how much we relish this, how much we seek more contact from one thing to the next. The Buddha is telling us that this is to be understood as painful, just like a flayed cow, skinless, exposed. It's a graphic image, isn't it? A cow with no protection from all the beings who want to come and feast upon it. It's like this. We're so sensitive, we're so exposed, and we're bombarded by all these inputs. If we really pay attention, we can understand how it's a relentless bombardment. The more we actually develop our meditation practice, we can really see this, can't we? We can appreciate silence. We get to appreciate stillness, peace. And sometimes after a long retreat, if we've had a degree of peacefulness, experience of peacefulness in our practice, perhaps we've entered jhana and we've let go of so much of the world, the bombardment of the world, of the senses. And then we emerge and we are again faced with all of the happenings around us. The sense doors are operating, and it can feel like being flayed, being bitten by all these different contacts. And so, friends, this is an encouragement from this sutta, from the Buddha, to consider this, the nature of contact, and how we can relish and delight in contact, and how actually the encouragement from the Buddha is to see that there is suffering here, that there is a degree of pleasure, some gratification perhaps in the latest movie or this delicious meal or this next adventure. But actually, when we really investigate deeply, we can see that it's agitation, it's trouble and turmoil for the mind, for the heart. And so let's see if we can consider this and bring in this balancing attitude to our experience of contact, to our experience of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. It's only really when we start to practice more fully the Buddha's teachings, when we start to develop samadhi, practice meditation, that we can easily begin to appreciate this, because peace is something that so surpasses any kind of material sense pleasure. the peace of letting go of the senses, the peace of stillness, the still focused mind. So we can come to understand these teachings experientially when we have a meditation practice. We start to develop a taste for peace. We cultivate. It's like an acquired taste. It's not a given because we're not used to it. We've learned to enjoy this bombardment, to enjoy being struck or bitten by all these different insects, being bitten by seeing, by sights, by smells, by tastes, by sounds, by touches, by thoughts. We come to enjoy. So it's an acquired taste, the taste for peace, the wish to be free of all of this bombardment. But we can certainly consider this teaching and really give it some attention. And when we're relishing particularly, or moving towards the prospect of relishing some kind of experience, let's remember the Buddha's words on contact, the simile of the flayed cow. And so then the Buddha speaks about the food of intention, mental intention. This is our sense of agency, of deciding, choosing, planning and directing our lives as if we're in control. We can expend a lot of energy in intentions around getting what we want, getting away from what we don't want, and also a lot of energy in not seeing what is right in front of our eyes, denying the way things are, denying reality, denying the fact that we're going to die, denying the fact that we're in a planetary crisis, climate crisis, wanting to direct this life so that we can be comfortable, satisfied, indulge in what we wish for, and ignore what we don't want to think about or to see. This food of intentionality, the directing, the conducting of the orchestra, the driving of the car, the Buddha said, this is like a pit of glowing coals, red hot, the height of a person. And what's happening? We're being pulled towards that pit. And what is the intention at that point? Let me get out of this. Let me get away from this. I can't go there. I will die, or I will be seriously suffering, profoundly suffering. This terrible fear, this terrible urgency, the sense of needing to get out of this. This is a beautiful simile for us to recognize this quality of samvega, of urgency. As if the Buddha says elsewhere, the house is on fire and we need to get out, or as if our hair is burning and we need to put the fire out, this urgency. Can we recognize that the only true intention that we can cultivate for our liberation is to want to be free from all of this? Can we feel that? Can we acknowledge that? Again, it's a balancing out because we spend so much of our time indulging in less beneficial intentions. The next hit of pleasure, it can be as mundane as that. The next holiday, the next treat, or it may be good intentions around how I serve in the world, how I live a wholesome life, how I make the most of this experience. These intentions so wholesome, so good. But ultimately, we want to be recognizing that the true intentionality to be cultivated, to be known, to be lived is the intention for liberation. May I be free. May I be free from all this suffering. And in order to cultivate this intention, to recognize that this is our direction, we can consider this simile, that actually the situation that we're in is like being dragged towards the pit of burning coals. It's terrifying. It's a terrifying image, isn't it? We are in trouble. This is collectively true, and this is personally the case for us, because we're moving inexorably, aren't we, towards old age, sickness and death. And just to really know that, to really take that on board, is to refine our intention so that we are holding to this wish. May I be free from this? May I escape this? This is too terrible to want to move in even a fraction of a centimetre, a millimetre in the direction of that burning pit is huge suffering for me. Let me move away from samsara. Let me come out of this burning state. Let me find the coolness of nibbana. And so this is such a strong encouragement towards the correct view and towards the spiritual path. So let's remember this, friends. When we are noticing that we're directing our lives towards this or that or the other, let's recall, what is the direction we're actually moving in? Where are we headed? Where do we want to aim, to set the compass, to pivot our intentionality so that it's directed towards nibbana? So the simile of the glowing charcoal pit is a powerful one. The Buddha brings this in many, many suttas in different contexts, but oftentimes it's in relation to the true understanding of sense pleasures. So when we are seeking pleasure in this world, the Buddha is saying, wake up, recognize that this is like eating the flesh of your dead child. This is like being flayed and bitten, attacked, and consumed by all sorts of little beings that are causing you enormous suffering. This is like being dragged towards a charcoal pit. This is not to terrify us and traumatize us. This is to help us to see more clearly, because we have the tendency to so want to enjoy sense pleasures that we're inclining towards them all the time. And our lives can be revolving around whatever it is that we want in this realm, whether it's wealth or status or comfort, whatever it might be. This is our inclination. So you see, this simile is a balancing to help us to consider this. Consider that we're walking into fire every time we give importance to the acquisition of this or that, the experience of this or that pleasant sensation. It all boils down to pleasant sensations in the body. That's all it's about. And so as we practice meditation, we get more familiar with the feelings in the body. We can have resource. We have the ability to withstand these desires and to see more clearly their danger. So these are just a few words about the simile of the glowing pit and this food, this nourishment of intentionality. Let's take away the clear encouragement to allow our intentionality to really direct and focus and bring it all together, bring in all these different energies of intentionality and let them all point toward the direction of freedom, of nibbana, of letting go of desire, of seeing through the defilements of wanting, not wanting, confusion, and finding our way out of suffering, friends. So the fourth kind of food, the final one, is consciousness. The simile here is the, again, very graphic, very horrific simile of the 300 spears, being beaten by 300 spears. How much we therefore need to be encouraged to see that this consciousness that we so enjoy, that we so identify with, that we make me and mine, is painful. So can we appreciate this encouragement from the Buddha to begin to let go, to begin to disidentify with this consciousness? It's not so difficult in some way for meditators to recognize that consciousness is not me, it's not mine. We can see consciousness arising and passing when we have an opportunity to develop samadhi, when we have the opportunity to let go of any kind of motivation whatsoever. But this is not so easy to see, to really comprehend, unless we have good samadhi. Because even as we meditate, it can be that we identify with the one who knows, this one who sees, the knower, the awareness itself. We can identify with that. And it's a very tricky thing, because this can be a very strong identification. When we're seeking something to be and we have a spiritual inclination, we have a very firmly directed intention toward nibbana, well then all of this selfing can sort of glom onto the one who knows, the awareness, the meditator, that part of the mind that's observing. And we can make that me and mine. And we start to reify it, solidify around it. This is very dangerous. So meditation can be both a support for letting go of self in relation to consciousness, and it can also be a danger that we can sometimes really let go to a great extent, let go of the body, let go of relishing contact, relishing nourishment, let go of unskillful intention, painful intention. We can be very clear about these things, and we can still have a huge degree of attachment, selfing around consciousness. So this is why the Buddha gives us such similes as the 300 spears simile. It's like, wake up and remember that we are not that. Consciousness is dukkha. Consciousness is great suffering. It's being hit by 100 spears in the morning. It's comparable to being beaten to a pulp, and then if you're not already dead, you'll get beaten again. This life is one beating. And then if we're not willing to see and perceive and fully understand that, we'll come back for more. Rebirth will happen. And again, it starts up. It's hard for us to fully perceive in this way unless and until we've experienced the end of consciousness in some moment, even just a moment. So this is not something we can necessarily get fully, but we can consider this teaching. We can contemplate this teaching and consider that this is a teaching from an enlightened person. He's telling us this is how it is. It's like you arrive at the destination, you look back and you can see how you got there, and you can tell people, well, it's like this where you are, it's like that. We can trust the Buddha's teaching on this matter, even though we can't fully understand it. Let's consider consciousness. This consciousness that we're experiencing is painful. It's not just painful, friends. It's very, very painful. So to help us to remember, we don't want to identify with consciousness. We don't want to be the one who knows. We don't want to be aware. We don't want to be the meditator. We want to be willing to consider letting go of that. Consider that there may be identification with this aspect of experience, the most spiritual, the most sublime, the purest and the best. There may be identification with this. Can I raise that possibility? Is there something more to be let go of? Can I let go of identifying with this awareness itself? When we start to loosen the grip on consciousness, my consciousness, we can start to see how very changeable this is. We can start to appreciate how we go to sleep at the end of the day and we can really fully let go. It's over. It's finished. What peace we can experience. We can also start perhaps to consider the consciousness that's left in sleep. There's the dream world, there's the deep sleep realm where there is some consciousness. Is that me? Is that mine? No, of course not. So when I wake up, when there's the morning comes and there's the waking consciousness reasserting itself, this is a very good moment, friends, to consider what's actually happening, because very quickly the sense of me comes in, the sense of myself, my existence. I'm back. Let's consider that in the moment of waking and the reawakening of daytime consciousness. Can we remember, not me, not mine, not myself, and just allow that understanding, that possibility to inform us and to see how that can manifest for us. beaten by 300 spears a day. This is the attitude, the relationship to consciousness that the Buddha is encouraging us to consider, to develop. Everyone.